My wife starts bawling in tears and starts begging for forgiveness while reaching out for a hug. He rebukes and calls her a W-H-O-R-E. I started seeing red and I was up in his face telling him to watch his mouth. Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, gonna go over a story titled, Swinging Was More Important Than My Son. And guys, this story is all about a married couple. They have one son together, and as you can imagine from the title, their whole life they've engaged in a different lifestyle than traditional parents. And you're gonna see that their son eventually, as a young adult, 23, finds out. And let's just say he doesn't take it very well. And ultimately, you're gonna see what he does with the mom and dad. And of course, there's the meltdown from the mother and all this drama and everything. But the main theme of this story is, guys, we have yet another story about a couple who decides to engage in a certain lifestyle, whether it's open marriage, open relationship, poly, swinging, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing. And they're now dealing with the consequences. That doesn't work. I've covered multiple stories like this where the kids find out, the son finds out, and they're done with them. Because the kid will look back at his life and say, this is why you were never there for my birthday parties. Or you were always late picking me up from school. Or you were never at my basketball games. Or why you were always gone every weekend. And all these other things. And you weren't there for me because they were so wrapped up in their lifestyle like this. And in my opinion, if you're going to have two consenting adults live a lifestyle like that, that's their business. But they should not be parents. And I've seen multiple times how it screws up the kids, especially when the kids find out. And right here, and just like in a lot of the stories, the kids want nothing to do with it. So, it starts off. This is from, by the way, the perspective of the father. He says here, our son, a 23-year-old male, was returning one of our bags we left at his house a week ago. He decided to return it late last night on Saturday. Our party ended, and we had people leaving. Apparently, when he reached our front door, we had couples leaving and talking about the party. My wife opened the door in shock. He threw the bag on the floor and said, here's your stuff. Sorry I interrupted your orgy. My wife, as usual, started blowing up his phone. My wife had the phone on speaker. He picked up for the fourth time and said, Mom, we could talk about this on Friday at my place, but I want to be left alone for this week. So you can understand this, he's in shock. It's obviously the first time he's finding this out. And by the way, guys, you can hear the rain. This is the nor'easter that's hitting New England. This is the early stages. I'm rushing out to do these videos here, so the show must go on. So just please ignore the noise. Friday came, and we were sitting at his place. He let out all of his frustrations. He said, you guys are basically gone every other weekend when I was 16 years old. Was the only time you guys were home was because you didn't have any F buddies to suck an F. Ooh, he's pissed. I told him to watch the way he spoke to us, and that we did still spend time on the days we didn't go, nor we were gone the whole weekend. He responds, yeah, name one time you guys did anything with me on an individual basis. He said you guys were attached to the hip, basically. I was actually jealous of your relationship. How effed up is that? I used to think it's nice and all how much you love each other, but couldn't show me the same amount of love and attention. These stories are all the same. And I don't mean they're the same story. And these are usually sons. Well, that's the interesting part. If they had a daughter, I can't imagine how screwed up she'd be. They're so into their lifestyle and all that, they're ignoring him. And he's just disgusted by this whole thing. He says, I used to get sick of seeing you snuggle with each other like teenagers whenever we used to watch a movie together. You used to tease me about it, but you had no idea how I felt inside. I responded with telling him that a romantic relationship and a parent-child relationship are completely different. Well, they are different. However, when you have kids, you gotta change your behavior, mom and dad. Don't get me wrong, it's great a mom and dad, a parents, couple, they love each other and they're affectionate and physical. That's great. But those kids are top priority. Doesn't mean you shut down your happiness for them, but definitely, in many ways, those kids really have to come first. But this kid obviously was a way distant second. He gets pissed off and says, don't insult my intelligence. I know that. It still doesn't change that you guys care more about each other. More like cared about their lifestyle. I've seen how girlfriends' parents love on her. I used to get jealous. By the way, Mom, yes, my girlfriend isn't a big fan of yours. Ooh, ouch. Well, what girl is usually a fan of their mother-in-law or future mother-in-law? Let's be honest here. She doesn't respect you as my parents. The reason I didn't share how I felt when I was at home is because it felt humiliating. My wife starts bawling in tears, of course, and starts begging for forgiveness while reaching out for a hug. He rebukes and calls her a W-H-O-R-E. That's going too far. Okay, I get he's pissed and has lots of good reasons, but there are lines you don't cross. I started seeing red, and I was up in his face telling him to watch his mouth. He then responds with saying, "What are you going to do, man, W-H-O-R-E? I shouldn't be calling you man. Get the F out of my house before I lose control." He's lucky his dad didn't clock him with a right hook. My wife is called out for going to work tomorrow. She hasn't left the bed. I've been crying all night. My son hates my guts and I don't know what to do. Well, you're learning there are consequences to your actions. Clearly there is way more stuff going on here, and this is built up with the kid. So you see here, guys, the way this kid's he's not a kid, he's 23, how he's reacting. And I guarantee he's looking back at his whole life saying they weren't there for this, they weren't there for that. I saw people leaving the house that I didn't know. I've heard all sorts of crazy stories to the extreme in these circumstances. Now for the update. And let's just say this update doesn't go well for Mom and Dad. It says here, I feel really numb right now. At this point, I'm writing for cathartic reasons. It's been 4 hours ago my son invited us to talk to him. I asked him to give us a couple or a few days, but my wife has been persistent to say it the least. Before we got in the car, we both agreed to listen to him and say his piece first. That's usually a good idea. Let the guy talk. Let him get it out. When we entered, he seemed energetic. He asked us if we want to water anything. We said no, and we sat down in the living room. He said a lot for me to quote. I'll just give a summary. He first apologized for the name calling. Well, that's good. He certainly should do that. He said he deeply regrets calling us what he did and wishes he could take that back. He says he is inherently against us being swingers, even though that's something he personally doesn't have an interest in himself. He feels, though, it was that our swinging took precedence over spending time with him. He understood that we couldn't have our world revolve around him. He understood we needed time as a couple to keep our marriage strong. That is all true, but obviously this is a way different extreme here. However, according to him, we checked out of the relationship when we had him at around 15. Hang on here. When we had him at around 15. Do they mean when he was 15, or they actually had him that young? Which is really fucked up, but okay. In his, we seem much more happy coming back from our weekend getaways and our anniversary vacation than family trips. The fact that we did more couples trips than family trips didn't help at all. We were practically gone every other Saturday. My parents hardly ever went away, just the two of them. The only time they did was when my dad had a military reunion across the country. My mom would go with him, and my grandma would watch us for a long weekend. That's about it. It was always the family, because I grew up in a very strong, traditional, nuclear family, and there were obviously every family has its issues, but believe me, looking back and knowing what I know and observing other friends' households, believe me, I had it made. I had very good parents, and I was so lucky for that. But growing up with this shit, good Lord. To him, it seemed like we were so happy and wrapped around each other, and he sort of felt like an intruder at our home. Out of fear of intruding, he never confronted us on how he felt inside. He said he felt like an accessory to our marriage, rather than a person we wanted a strong individual relationship with. It seemed like parenting was a daily chore for us. In order to deal with this, he asked us for one-on-one time with either of us, so he could feel like he could get our undivided attention at once. However, we rarely could have because of how many swinger activities we booked. There you go. We would tell him to do stuff with his friends instead. He figured out that we were swingers when he asked to borrow the laptop when he was 17 and we had one tab open. Okay, so he's known since he was 17, but obviously this has been, the resentment is building, especially when he walked down their little party the night before. But right there, he never could get one-on-one time with them because they were always booking parties, you know? Good Lord. He sort of gave up on wanting a relationship with us at that point. He told me he primarily dormed not only for social life, but he needed to get out of the house. He outright told us that we don't know him as an individual. To us, he's a quite quiet, introverted kid who doesn't say a whole lot around us. He probably doesn't know what to say. And they're probably two very animated, charismatic people. They probably suck all the air out of the room when the mother isn't sucking something else. He outright told us that we don't know him as an individual. To us, he's quite introverted kid, blah, blah, blah. However, he's much more talkative with everyone else around. The thing that shocked us was that he pretended to be happy when he called us or came to visit, so he didn't hurt our feelings. He says his love for us comes out of gratitude, not because he likes being around us or because he feels close to us. He mentioned that he talks to his girlfriend's parents significantly more than us. Yeah, because he feels like, obviously, his girlfriend, they have a real family. You know, none of this bullshit that he grew up in. That happens a lot when people have families, you know. I mean, I've known people like that they didn't like their family growing up. They had a girlfriend who was actually good to him, and her family became like their main family. And the parents could never figure out why exactly that was. But you go figure. The main reason that he blew up at us was that we came uninvited to his place. They hated the fact that he had to pretend to actually interact with us as if we had that kind of relationship. He initially wanted to make an excuse that he had to go somewhere else, but he made the excuse multiple times whenever we invited him or asked if he could come over. He wasn't just pissed about them showing up at his house. He was pissed because of what he walked into that recent party. So he had to bite the bullet. After 4 hours, we finally left. He was angry and annoyed at the time. He finally say we left the bag at his place. Not wanting an excuse to come to his place again, he dropped the bag off that night. He sort of figured it out that we had our parties ending, and it triggered him. He said what he wants from us now is the following. So the son is going to list his terms, what he wants from the parents as a relationship going forward, and it ain't pretty. He says, number 1, unless it's for a certain occasion, don't ask him to call or visit anymore. Number 2, he no longer will initiate anything from his side. Number 3, he wants us to call him if there's an emergency or if we need any possible financial help because he feels he owes us at least that much. Sounds like literally the only relationship he's going to have with him is because of it's almost like a business deal. Or he's grateful they gave birth to him and provided for him, but that's it. Number 4, respect the fact that his girlfriend's parents will take precedence over us from now on. Meaning if they ever had kids, they will be the primary grandparents. He will deal with taking care of them when they get old before he looks at us. Ooh. Number 5, don't ask for more or expect more out of our relationship. He does not want a mother-son dance at his wedding. He doesn't want me to give a speech at his wedding. Number 6, and he says here, my wife couldn't handle it and asked us to leave. She was silent the entire time we drove home. So that is the end of that little story there. But the moral of the thing is, what I'm trying to get out is, these things don't work. First of all, these relationships, these open marriages, the poly this, poly that screws up the couple in general. But it's rare you hear stories how it affects the kids. And right here, right now, it's a bad idea. If they want to do that lifestyle as consenting adults, they're both agreeing to that, fine. But when you have kids, no, And again, right here, I've done multiple stories like this. And it really seems like every story is about a son. I don't hear the perspective of a daughter finding this out, and they lose their freaking minds over this. So he's done with them, and they now have to deal with the consequences of their actions. But these two were never fit to be parents, ever. And I'm still not sure about the whole 15 thing, like that he found out when they were 15, or they actually had him at 15, which, given their lifestyle, wouldn't surprise me. So deal with the consequences, let your son go, and he might come back to you later in time. If he doesn't, you reap what you sow. Now some comments here, because believe me, the comments were full. A lot of people had a lot to say about this type of thing. This is from a woman. She says here, my husband and I agreed before we had kids that we would always recognize our relationship as spouses and our relationship as parents were two separate things. This is mainly because we were both children of multiple divorces, so we always agreed to never put our daughter through what we went through in terms of toxic co-parenting. There you go, Mom. That's called parenting. Good for you. So if our spousal relationship ends, that doesn't mean our relationship as parents will ever do to our daughter. And I think this is also applicable here. You should absolutely take time for your spousal relationship, but that parental relationship takes precedence. We have to work together to give the world an emotionally healthy individual, and if that means putting that spousal relationship to the back burner for a bit, then so be it. Okay, so she's thinking of the daughter, so good for her, you know? And again, it's important for couples, married couples, to have, obviously, their bond and playtime and all that, but you can't just make it all about you and then the kid is like the accessory. That's what they're talking about. And one more. This guy says here, my dad was a jock growing up. He was an all-star basketball teams growing up, and he could have played college basketball. He wanted nothing more to have kids who played ball like he did. Instead, he got two super uncoordinated theater kids. Could he have been shitty and disappointed? Yeah. But instead, he went to every play, helped me rehearse lines, let me discuss every little bit of drama with performances, chaperone theater field trips, and took days off work to participate in fundraisers for the program. He loved us, so he loved what we did. So there you go. He was a great dad. Even though they weren't star athletes like him, they were clumsy and uncoordinated, but he got theater kids, and probably band kids, but he loved them anyway. And one more, this guy says here, like the son said, it's good that they are happy in their couple life, but it seems that they really should have not had children at all. Exactly. I truly hope they will respect him and not forcefully go against his wishes. They made their bed, so now they have to lie in it. Well, because they've been busy lying in other people's beds. When they had the power to have a good relationship, they chose not to. Now it's up to their son whether he will be interested in them at all. I hope they're not the kind of parents who think that because they are older and want to enjoy family time, their son to take care of them. A relationship with their grandchildren, they will regret what they did. Even worse, they hope to have a happy family image in front of others, which is why they are upset that their son did not want them to have the mother-son dance and speech. Well, there you go. So, yet again, showing that these lifestyles in our Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0 world don't work on multiple fronts. Hopefully, someone will watch this and learn from this. I really do hope. Alright guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And also guys, if you come across a good story like to share, by all means email it to me. strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. Just give me some time to get to it. I definitely want to get the chance. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.